the one, the only, Bencio
Good morning and welcome to Yeshiva YouTube. Ideally speaking, today we continue in this book, The 10 Really Dumb Mistakes That Very Smart Couples Make. We're starting chapter 7. It's titled, Women Are More Sensitive. It's actually a pretty short chapter. Again, I'm going to divide every chapter into two parts. This is part 1. He starts off the chapter, what's worth fighting about in marriage? Obviously, spouses will have different wants and needs. They'll have different opinions. Decisions will have to be made, compromises too. But the question is, what issues are worth fighting about? The answer is everything. No, he says the answer is none. There's nothing worth fighting about. He says you both lose. Even if you win, you lose. The rule in marriage is that nothing is worth fighting over. Negotiate, debate, discuss, but don't fight. Okay. And he even says advice for a man. That's the advice I give to couples. But the men I give advice that is more specific. Don't fight with your wife, not because it's a lose-lose situation. Because you'll lose. You're not going to win. Guaranteed. You're outclassed, outmanned, and outgunned. It's like fighting an eighth degree black belt. You're going to get destroyed. Women have incredible memories. They remember everything you ever did wrong in vivid detail, and they will bring it up over and over again. I once spoke with a woman who began listing for me all the things her husband had ever done wrong. Ma'am, I said, it was 20 years ago. You can't remember what she said, but she remembers your entire history. He also gives a piece of advice. The reason you shouldn't fight, the only thing you should fight over, is if something will matter in 5 years. It's called the 5-year rule. If something does pass the 5-year rule, I would strongly recommend that you should be shol eitzah, ask someone for advice, because what we think is so important in the moment usually doesn't matter in the bigger picture. But one thing is for sure, don't fight. It just damages the relationship. Okay, let me give my reaction to this. There's this famous story about a big rabbi, I believe of Shlomo Zalman Auerbach, who got up to speak at his wife's funeral. And he said, I'm not asking for mechila. Normally the custom is to ask mechila, especially the husband from the wife. He said, I don't need to ask mechila. We never got into a fight. Now, and I hear this story repeated many times over and over again. Now, he in the book admits that he said in the last chapter that it's normal to fight. If you're a human being, you fight. So, okay, so he's saying over here, his eitzah, the best possible thing is not to get into fights. Don't get into fights. Obviously, you're human in nature, you're going to get into fights. The advice is to try to avoid fighting, but it's normal you're going to get into fights. I want to suggest even more. It's not only makes you human. If you don't get into fights, you're not married. But if you don't get into fights as a husband, women always want things. They'll let you know what they want usually. Women have desires, they have wants. Men who don't get into fights are not married to their wives. Because why? Because they don't have their own personality. They don't have their wants. They don't have needs. Man, a lot of men ignore their own personal wants and needs. Because men are not in touch with their human self so much. Their mind is either in their business or they're learning. It's somewhere else. So they're not even in touch with what they like to eat, how they like to dress, what they like in the bedroom. They're not even in touch with these things. So a man is not, and you're not in touch with these things, you're not married to a woman, because women are in touch with these things. So if you're not fighting with your wife, listen, it's not a great thing, but it's inevitable, and you're going to fight with your wife, and you should fight for your wife, because your wife is going to want things, and women like to control their man, and tell man how to act. Women always do this. They try to control their man. They don't try to control them how they treat the woman, because men don't try to control women usually. They don't try to control women. You can't wear that. You can't do this. You can't. But women do that. Women try to control their man. And if a man cares about himself and cares about certain things in life, he's going to fight back. And he should fight back. And you should stick up for yourself if you're a man. And don't let your wife take advantage of you. Show her you're the boss. If you want respect in a marriage, you got to fight for yourself. That's the way it is. Women, yes, the women are better than you in this world. Like he says, they're better decision makers. They're smarter in terms of the nitty-gritty, the specifications, the specific details in life. They're better at it, but as a man, your goal should be focus on what you like and fight for it, because it's not going to be easy. It's not always going to be easy. I got married to a woman who's from a Haredi background, and when we got married, I was also ultra-Orthodox. I was Haredi also. Would I describe myself now as Haredi? I wouldn't put myself in any box, to be honest with you. I'm a pretty open-minded person. I think there's nice aspects of all different spectrums of Judaism. Some positive aspects, some negative aspects. If you wanted me to list some positive aspects of Haredi people, I could name some positive aspects of Haredi people. They're generally more truthful. Generally, you can leave stuff in the shul, no one's going to steal it from you over here. They generally do a lot of chesed, a lot of kindness for people. They always want to help. There's a lot of positive things. There's things I disagree with. The society as a whole, as a kollel, promoting kollel lifestyle, I think is a huge mistake. Dependency on other people is a mistake. Taking favors and things like that. Some would call it, in extreme cases, being parasites. I wouldn't say that as an overgeneralization, but every group has their things which they're good and not so good. I like to try to take the good out of everything and see the good in every different aspect. Even traditional Jews have certain positives over religious Jews. So I'm not here to talk about that, but I did change after I got married. I was very ultra orthodox, and the reason I changed is because the main reason I changed is because Haredi Judaism makes a lot of sense for people that are not married, but once you get married, you have to be responsible and mature. And one of the main contentions is getting a computer in the house with internet, open internet, a smartphone with open internet. This is, who wants a filter? It makes your life so. I had a filter for a little while on my phone. It makes your life, you have to call them up every time you want to open an app. It's crazy. It's ridiculous. It took them 10 years to get back to me. I don't have to deal with this, just for the sake of simplicity in my life. Makes your life much easier, I don't have a filter in at home, I have a filter and on the computer, the laptop at home for pornography and extreme violence, but, I need everything else to be open, especially that I run a YouTube channel. I need complete access to the internet. And it's my dream to make videos and to have a YouTube channel, and I'm going to let that get in my way because some Rabbanim feel that you're not allowed to use the internet because you're going to go and you're going to ruin your life. You're going to ruin your life if you don't live your dream and do what you want. And the point I'm bringing this in is because I had to fight for this. I had to fight tooth and nail for this because it mattered to me. And obviously my wife, grew up in a house where these views were drilled into her head that the internet and smartphones are the worst possible thing in the world. It brings you and your family off the derech. There is no derech. Chanoch l'narapi darko. Whatever. It doesn't mean Chanoch l'narapi darko that in Haredi society you should tell them whichever Gemara you like, that's the Gemara you should learn. No. Chanoch l'narapi darko. Educate your children based on what proclivity they have. Proclivity towards being more secular, more religious, whatever, dancing, singing, whatever they're into. Let them develop their own skills and their own greatness. You shouldn't restrict that. But again, I'm not fighting. I don't fight. I don't pick fights about what's going to be with my kids or what's going to be with my wife. I'm not going to try to control my wife. I don't even, fight for, what my kids should watch. Now, when it affects me, I do. Like on Friday afternoon, my wife's cooking and I have to take care of the kids. So I'm not, it's hard for men to take care of kids. I say just sit them down in front of the computer, watch some Marvelous Meadows Machine or something like that, some from good programs. It took my wife a while to get used to it, but she got used to it. Now they watch some other program, Rabbi B. I don't know exactly who these people are, religious stuff. But I don't care. I just want them out of my way. I don't want to watch the kids 24/7. It's hard for me to watch them for 3-4 hours straight. So like everyone else on a Friday afternoon, you sit their kids in front of the computer and let them watch something. That affects me. If it affects me with the kids, if I'm watching something on my phone or the computer and the kid comes over, I can't make myself crazy and shut it off all the time. So you have to fight for yourself. And if you care about yourself, listen, there are other examples, plenty of people not like me. There are a lot of couples have ideological differences. There's couples that don't have ideological differences, but you're always going to have to fight for stuff. And women try to control their men, and men have to stand up for themselves and fight for yourself. You want to get respect. It just doesn't, respect from a woman to a man doesn't just come natural. You have to earn that respect. And part of it is fighting for her. And what he says over here, that you'll never win against a woman, if you don't know how to fight, if you don't know the tactics, if you don't know how to fight a battle, then you're not going to win. But I quickly learned that it's not that hard to defeat a woman. but you have to use manly tactics. If you just try to talk about our past, yeah, of course, she does more for you. You don't care about her, but use manly tactics. You can threaten, right? Threatening is a manly thing. You can threaten, you can silence, you can, stonewall, not for a long time, because if a woman emotionally is withdrawn because you're not talking to her, but you can silence and then come back and talk. You have to be very skilled and control your anger. Don't let your anger overtake you. You can yell sometimes at your wife and show that you're very angry about things. Women don't like when you yell at them. They feel scared. Not to abuse the wife, just to show that it matters a lot to you. You could say something and walk out. Be tactful, basically. And then come back and she begs you, come talk to me, and then you'll say your point, and she'll say hers, and then you'll say, okay, but it's for me, and then you walk out. Use tactics. You can even threat. You can threat a divorce. You can threaten these things. Women want their love, want the marriage, and when you don't talk to them, they feel like they're missing out on their life. They don't have the love. The greatest display of not loving somebody is not talking to them. So you can threaten by not talking, but you can't if you do it, if you get angry and you do it too much, obviously you get angry if you're in a fight. You're gonna be angry. You're gonna be emotional, but be smart about it. Never just cut your wife off. I think it's a good rule. Never go to sleep in a fight. You should try to take care and resolve your things. But during the day, try to be tactful, and you have to be smart. And there's definitely, as a man, you have control over the love. Remember, the thing the woman wants is love. And when she feels that you are taking that love away from her, she's going to be vulnerable. She's going to give in. And she's not going to, and threaten. There's different ways of doing it, So, yes, they are smarter in terms of maybe conversation, but don't get into the conversation. Avoid the conversation. Be silent. Walk out on her. Then come back in. Walk out, come back in. They say for sleep training for kids, you go in, you walk out, you check on them. I don't think after 4 kids, sleep training is a mistake. You let the kid cry until they stop crying, 2 or 3 nights, and then they stop crying. This whole thing, come in and don't come in, make yourself crazy. But for a woman, it works. So if you're not going to stand up for yourself, you're not a man. You don't care about yourself, and you can win. You can win. Of course, you have to be fair, right? You have to be fair. You want your wife to be happy. You don't want her to be sad. But if something's really important to you, and usually it affects only you, if it only affects you, right? If it's something which you're fighting about, what you want the children to do, that's juvenile. That's stupid. Why do you care how the children turn out? I mean, it's important to you that you want your children to turn out like you, but your children are your children. Women love their children much more than men care about their children. That doesn't mean men don't care about their children. Women really are invested in their children because they spend all day with their children. Men care about their children, but not to the same degree. So fight for things that are important to you, not things that are important about the kid or your wife. Let her deal with that, and you deal with things that are important to you, and stand up for yourself and earn that respect. Every man complains, my wife is not respecting me. If you cared about yourself and you had interest in this world, about your human condition, and you fought for those, that would make you a man, and your wife would respect you. He ends off this part. He talks about a woman is more sensitive than men. Basically, he talks about, he says a story. My wife and I have been married for about 30 years. Not long ago, we were walking together and she tripped. Are you okay? I asked with great concern as I helped her up. I'm fine. As she brushed herself up again, I asked her again, are you sure you're okay? Yes, I'm fine. You sure? Yes. When we headed into the car, I asked her again if she was okay. As we drove home, I asked her the same question a number of times. My wife isn't frail and she's not old, yet I kept asking to make sure that she was okay. When I was first married, that wouldn't have been my reaction. That's because when I was a kid, I was into martial arts. Okay, he goes into a story about he was a tough guy. I don't know. He was fighting a guy, a black belt. He almost won. He asked her 100 times. Now, most wives would think you're crazy. You're a shugana. How many times are you going to ask her? You ask her once or twice. That's normal. To me, it sounds like he doesn't have a marriage with his wife. And like I mentioned in the last chapter, women who don't have a real marriage make pretexts. she'll complain. How come you didn't ask me 5 times? I'm okay. That's not what's bothering her. What's bothering her is something else. Usually it's related to the bedroom and communication in the bedroom. Like I always said, it always comes back to that. It comes out from the wife in many different ways. She'll appear like 5 different ladies. She's very too emotional. She's too hurt. She's tense. And now, I will say this. If you insult a woman, whether it's her cooking or her appearance, you make something degrading to her, be very, very careful with those comments, those direct comments to her. They're insulting to her. If she asks how her food was, say good. Obviously, if it matters to you how she cooks, because you have to eat it, you don't tell her right then. You can tell her a day later, 2 days later, the next time she's thinking about making that food. Maybe you could add it like this. Maybe I would have something else. If you do it in the moment, because I cook also sometimes, and when you cook, you're very cognizant of what people are going to say about your food. I feel this myself also. Obviously, I'm a man, I'm not as sensitive as a woman. But if someone says they don't like my cooking and they're not eating the food, that would be really insulting to me. I mean, just put all this work in, and it's not eating it, Or if someone would say, I look fat or something like that. I did lose a lot of weight recently, so so I'm happy about that. But people would say that. It would bother me, but it wouldn't overwhelm me. But for women, they're more sensitive, they're more emotional. So you're really taking the life out of them when you say direct comments of a husband who the woman really is depending on for love. She wants to love her. One of the biggest opposites of love is when you insult her. I would say stonewalling her is more, but when you insult her, you're talking to her, but you're insulting her. That's devastating to a woman. So be really sparing with those comments. If it matters to you, or her appearance matters to you, you want her to be a little skinnier. Not when she asks you. When she asks you, how do I look? You look great. You look amazing. A different time, when you're in the middle of a conversation about dieting or whatever, something else, about foods or whatever, you ever consider dieting or something like that, in the past. You don't try to bring it up like a direct thing, like I'm asking you to diet, because that's sort of insulting. Did you ever go into diet in your past or something like that? And she'll eventually bring up the conversation. Maybe do you like me? Because women want to please their husbands. They want their husbands to love them. They want to look good in their eyes to the husband. So just bring it up, not when they ask, in a direct way after that. But in terms of how they are, if they fall down or something like that, like you can ask once or twice, be normal about it. If she's being overly emotional, you have to ask her 10 times how she's doing, and she complains that you don't ask her 10 times. It's a sign that there's something else really bad in the marriage, tracing back to the bedroom and communication in the bedroom. And that's really why women get overly emotional and overly complain about what their husbands don't do for them, and they have recollections all the way 20 years ago. Women are not like that if they're treated nicely and they feel love and they get what they need in the bedroom. That's what I have to say about this chapter. I'll see you later in the week for part 2.